Hello and welcome back to Alcohol and Anime Night, the show that gets you drunker, the show that gets you fatter, and the show that teaches you all about supernatural and super sexy entities that are coming to get you. Hopefully. Welcome back, everybody. My name's Scott, and we're going to do something a little bit different this episode. We're going to do, instead of a long-term review that I tell you all about something that I've already watched, I'm going to talk about more of a first impression or a first look at an anime that I'm trying out. And I'm going to see if it pans out after I watch the whole thing, so I can come back and get your feedback as well. Today we're going to be talking about the very dirty, the very inappropriate Kanokon. And Kanokon is, from what I've watched here, and it's going to be full of spoilers, except for the fact that there's only 2 episodes that I've watched. So I'm going to tell you what I've seen based on those episodes that I've watched and my first impressions of the show. So my first impressions, the show is ecchi, harem, comedy, supernatural type thing, which pushes all the right buttons for me. It's very funny. It's not anything particularly different or new. For example, it has the same trope, which is there's a transfer student, okay, and as soon as there's a transfer student, all the ladies are like, oh, transfer student, and then, well, at least a couple of them are. The one thing that's interesting about this is this transfer student, he appears to be like maybe just his stature, he's quite a lot smaller than the other kids in his class, and so he appears to be younger, which does make some of the rest of it a little bit weird. But upon arriving at the school, essentially this student that is an older student, an older girl, immediately falls in love with him. And he has no idea how to deal with this, as most people who were like freshmen and super awkward and maybe small at their time has no idea how this, tall, essentially, beautiful lady comes up and just is madly in love with him. He has no idea how to deal with it. He tries, but he fails all the time. And she just is all over him, and it's in public, whatever it is, it just can't get enough of him. She's madly in love with him, completely infatuated. It's so much so that all the other students essentially just call him like the Ero King, or Ero King. Like it's basically means like he's just like a pimp. He's just like the coolest guy ever. He's just like a pervert. But it's always her kind of chasing him, and he just like is always put into these super bizarre, super funny, oftentimes ultra public type of scenarios. The school rep, who is kind of supposed to like help him get acquainted and kind of it would have been like your class president, the class rep. That was like, it's serious business in Japan. Like if you're the class rep, like the kind of reputation of the class is your reputation, so they take it very seriously. And so the class rep is just wrecked about this whole situation because it's totally inappropriate and it's not. The show itself is really fun. Again, some of the tropes are the same. So it's a transfer student. He's there without his parents, and there's this madly in love with him girl that shouldn't be. It's kind of now it gets a little odd when you discover at some point she's a fox, and by fox I don't mean just foxy. She's literally a fox. She's a fox spirit, and at some point he discovers that and still thinks she's cool because she's embarrassed by it, and then they kind of continue on being friends. And more than friends, and then later on, another transfer student comes in, and she is kind of physically the opposite of the girl who I didn't mention her name. Her name is Chizuru Minamoto, and she is the fox girl. And a new girl comes along who is physically very. Chizuru is very voluptuous and tall and kind of curvy. The transfer student, Nozumu Azumori, is quite the opposite. Very petite, very kind of the typical. They always have to have the 2 opposite sides of the spectrum: the super busty girl and the super flat-chested girl, and they are always at odds with each other because you can't have both. You can't possibly like both of those things. But she, spoiler alert, she is like a wolf girl. She's like a wolf spirit, and so it's very fun. There's definitely nudity, definitely inappropriate stuff. So if that pushes your buttons, that's the kind of stuff that I always find to be really funny and shocking, and so that's always very, very crazy to see that still. So it's definitely kind of gets into the R rating, not one for the kids by any means. Fun episodes, just the two. I'm definitely gonna see. I usually give every anime I watch, I give it 3 episodes. I've already given this one 2. So in this case, I'll probably end up watching the whole season. It came out in 2008, and believe it or not, there was also a PlayStation 2 visual novel that was done the same year. If you don't know what a visual novel is essentially like a comic book that you can kind of play through. Sometimes you can make choices to determine the outcome, kind of like a choose your own adventure thing. They played a lot of those on the older PlayStations because they were just cheap to make and they could bang them out. And so you might be like, PlayStation 2? Believe it or not, there's still a lot of people that play the PlayStation 2, because of the nature of certain games that were only offered on that. So even in 2008, people were still rocking the PlayStation 2 in Japan with those visual novels. So it was a really cool thing to know that came out. So the whole thing takes place in a high school for the most part. Most of the scenes are there. And again, I wanted to talk a little bit about the fox spirits because it actually made me think a little bit about a little bit of Japanese history, a little bit of Japanese lore. So the word kitsune literally means fox. That's the literal word for fox. But in the if we're actually talking about supernatural yokai are like supernatural beings. A kitsune is a fox spirit, and fox spirits are very you might know them from different. You might know like the nine-tailed fox from Naruto and some of those. So kitsune are very powerful, sometimes quite mischievous spirits. Not necessarily bad, not necessarily good, but there are sometimes spirits that you couldn't trust. And an interesting note: most people know, kind of again, it's a little bit of a kind of a cliche, but when they pick up a phone, a lot of people know moshi moshi, which you don't use that greeting all the time on the phone, but moshi moshi is the origins of it. From everything I could tell, originally came from when people would go to answer their door, and now eventually moved to telephones. But originally, when people go to answer the door, they go moshi moshi, and it's something like saying I'm going to say kind of thing. Like it's kind of like, and it was originally led to believe that there are certain words that fox spirits couldn't pronounce properly. And by saying moshi moshi, that was like confounding them, and it'd be a way to find out if a fox spirit was perhaps at your door, and then maybe over the phone. And it just kind of continued on that way for ages. I don't know how much truth there is. It's a bit of a legend, and it's one I heard a long time ago. But it's fun to think about the idea that the kitsune were enough that it changed a whole culture's version of how they answer the door and answer the phone. I don't know if people answer the door that way anymore, but it's funny that it did transfer over to the phone for at least a few people. So anyway, I think I'm going to continue watching Kanokon. I think you should watch it too. If you have watched it, let me know in the comments what you thought of it. Again, it's pretty dirty so far, which I'm always into. Not quite as bad as some of the other ones. It's still a little bit more romantic, but still fun. I think I'm going to keep watching it and enjoy it. There's another one that I'm watching that is essentially about a girl who comes out of a melon soda can, and I actually found this one. It was actually, there were two anime that had a very similar name, and I spelled them a little bit different. And so one was like Kanokon or something, and Kanokon. And so I ended up finding about this one that was, honestly, it was a really stupid anime. It's about this girl who comes out of a can, and she's like the spirit of the can, and she's like her power is this melon soda. It's drawn weirdly, and I didn't really I didn't really like it that much. Maybe I'll talk about it and do like a review of an anime I didn't like that much either. But yeah, anyway, just thought I'd try something a little bit different, kind of a what I'm watching right now type thing, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I've yet to find anything recently that I've liked as much as some of the other ones that you've seen that I've reviewed. Every so often, once a season, I'll catch something that's brilliant, and I'll just like, I can't wait to watch the rest of it. And so I hope this one ends up being that. Right now, there's another one I'm watching, and the name of it is basically falling out of my head, but it's one that I really can't wait to do the review on. It's a lot of fun. It's basically called like the Best Friends Club is like the translation for it. So that one's a lot of fun. It's about people who create a club to try and get friends, and they're just terrible at it, and so some of the interactions there are pretty fun. We can't forget about our alcohol for tonight. So this one we have is a little bit special. Another local type beer. This is from Huss Brewing here in Arizona, and it is the Papago Orange Blossom, and it's actually a mandarin and wheat beer. Very good. I actually ordered some up for a party I'm having tomorrow, and I forgot how tasty it is. It's just a really good beer, very refreshing, great summer beer. It's not a girly, fruity beer if you're worried about being manly and not being able to have that, but check out the Huss Brewing Papago Orange Blossom. It is a mandarin wheat. I think you're going to like it. Very refreshing. And I think you can only get it in Arizona, though. But if you're in Arizona, you can get it pretty much just about anywhere. I think even like the convenience stores have it. So yeah, very cool. Huss Brewing also includes in their 6-packs, it actually covers the entire top of the can, which I think is really nice because if you're going to drink out of the can, oftentimes your mouth is right against it, and it keeps kind of the disgustingness from being across the top of the can, which I think is a really great kind of something that nobody would have thought of normally. So anyway, that's all I got for you tonight. We'll go back to our regular review schedule later. I just wanted to try out a couple new things lately just to see if it worked and see if there was some new changes that we could make. Again, always like and comment, subscribe. I love when you guys comment because I take a lot of your suggestions straight in, move them right into it. Some of my friends and some of my subscribers who have mentioned things, the microphone, for example, they've given me some great feedback, and I've tried to put as much of it to work as possible to make it a better show for you and make it a more enjoyable experience for me. So, as always, thank you for talking anime. Kanpai.